This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of
You can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price that you can get Truefire All Access for.
I think PRS have been somewhat a victim of their own success in some regards, because I put up a post, I think, on Instagram, possibly of this one, definitely of this one, and the question was, are those SE models? And actually these are the much more expensive S2 models. So I kind of wanted to discuss in this video what the S2 series actually is about now and how it's sort of evolved over time. These are two loaner guitars from PRS. I'm going to try and convince them to let me keep some part of one of these guitars, maybe a headstock or something. So when the S2 range first came out, I don't know what part of this I remember well, but I think, like, is it the Vela, maybe the Mira, and like the standard models, they were essentially, and I think they're still referred to as this within the PRS. When you watch videos of them, they're referred to like the midline. And I think the idea was that you'd have the PRS SE guitars basically came because Santana wanted a budget option to be available. Probably the best decision that PRS ever made in terms of finances, I imagine. So then you had this gap of, like, you know, 400, 500, 600 pound guitars and their core models. So this was in 2013. The S2 line came about. I can remember back in like 2015, 2016, I tried a couple of these. It was easy to get these for way under £1,000 at the time. You'd see them getting blown out at stores. and it was quite an affordable set of stuff. I was never necessarily blown away by some of those guitars. I had them for a bit. But the thing was that they were like this opportunity for some of the PRS kind of thing, made in America mostly, and that sort of thing. Over time, I think this has kind of shifted a bit. So what has happened is the PRS SE has gradually got better and better, and you know, like to the point now where they're bringing out things like the DGT, which I thought was actually, I preferred that to my DGT Core that I had. I certainly played it more. That's not to say that it's a better guitar in general than every Core DGT. It was a guitar that hit way above the price that I paid for it, I felt like, and worthy of the PRS name. So that's the PRS DGT. They've also brought out like the 2408. I tried that one as well. So I would say that the SE stuff is, I think, starting to compete with like the S2 line, and I think that is basically what's happened, is that the Core stuff has crept up in price, the SE stuff has crept up in price, and I'm sure tariffs are going to mean that that continues to happen. Then the S2 range has kind of then been in this sort of a little bit of a no man's landy thingy. So actually what they've changed with the S2 recently are a few different bits and pieces. The way that PRS seems to work with their more popular models is that they try to basically offer those models at each price point. So like the McCarty 594, this is a 2023 model, but essentially if you look at it across the SE range, which is about £800, to the S2 range, which is about £2,500, they're quite similar in some regards. And then there's obviously the Core model, which is like 3.5, 4.5, that kind of money. So what is this S2? Is it in a no man's land, or have they actually figured something out here? I think essentially what has happened recently, big changes, like they've started using the newer tuning pegs, which I don't know if that's going to be a huge selling point for many people. They've started using nitro on the body, so the same nitro formula that gets used on the really expensive Core models. It's going to be the same hardware, and importantly, the same pickups. So the pickups are all machine wound, I think, at PRS. You can see there's videos of their process there, and also the guy that seems to be in charge of most of that stuff. But essentially the S2 then is like your American-made nitro US pickups, so no longer using the Indonesian pickups wherever they're made. This has SE type pickups in them, right, I think, whereas the 2025 model would not. A US made guitar, and the craftsmanship on these is really, really good, and I think consistency tends to be really good too. That's one of the things that PRS are known for, as well as having like a few checkpoints along the way. And I look at something like what a Gibson might cost. So I found on Peach a Gibson, or three of them actually, Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s with an AAA top upgrade. And these were like £2,900 guitars. The weights of them were all in the £9 range, whereas the PRS, I think you'll find, tend to be a little bit less than that. The main difference between this and a Core, from what I could tell, is that this has got a scarf neck joint. So a Core would have a one piece. This is not. So that's one difference. It's still a one piece back on here. So all of the S2 stuff, from what I know, one piece mahogany, which is, you know, not the sort of thing that you're going to find on a Gibson at this price. And then this top here, like the CNC pattern they use on the top, is going to be different. So for that full PRS violin carve experience, you're going to pay quite a bit extra. But other than that, there aren't huge differences, in my opinion. Like the inlays are going to be slightly different. I think also this will be a decal on an S2, whereas it's an inlay on a Core model. You're getting, I think, quite a lot more guitar for the money in that full, I would say it's basically a full PRS experience. And just plugging this one in yesterday, I was remarkably impressed by how loud this thing is unplugged. So really, this is the 2025 would have US pickups and electronics. This has the SE pickups essentially, right? So the difference between this and an SE actually would be smaller than like a recent model. I did notice that on an SE the binding goes around the fingerboard altogether, whereas here it's a bit of a weird little detail, but it does actually look really classy. There's no binding on this bottom edge, so you get like the line goes around here, it kind of looks like. That's kind of pretty, but I do think for me the S2 range I think it suits me a bit better just because it does seem a little bit more, you know, I guess there's less energy gone into like the binding and stuff like that and aesthetic things, where I think sometimes PRS, certainly for some people, can be a bit aesthetically over the top, whereas I think this just has a really classy look to it, and at the same time, you know, with the nitro stuff and all of that, it's kind of got that feeling like it could be a great gigging guitar, if you get what I mean. Whereas, you know, a core model to me in some cases is going to be, I think, a little bit too nice to take to certain venues. And I think that's still the case with some of these S2s, right? These are now quite premium guitars. Take this as the special now, you know, with a semi-hollow. I think it's a really interesting evolution that the S2 range has gone over, from being like a mid-priced entry-level US model to now really kind of this just slight alternative to the core, where it's like maybe they're not doing all of the most fancy finishing options, but you still got the real American stuff, some really premium types of guitar specs, all nitro finish, all American made. Yeah, it's changed a lot in 10 years, I think. Let me know if you're an S2 type of PRS player, or do you go for the all-out kind of thing? And I guess on the used market as well, you're going to see, you know, this kind of value proposition even more accentuated, because, you know, you can pick up an S2 for about £1,000, or you can pick up older core models for... I was seeing them for a bit cheaper more recently, and then I looked again even more recently, and the prices are creeping up again. But pleasantly surprised by the S2 models. I think I was worried that the SE stuff was catching up to it, but I think with that perception in mind, what PRS have done is kind of put a little bit more juice into the S2 range in general, and I think, yeah, it's pushed up the price of them, but I think the quality is kind of there to justify it, I think. And also, I really like these PRS pickups. For humbuckers, and I've never had a guitar with an HS8 configuration, like playing wise it does feel a bit cramped in there, but I think the range of tones you can get with there is really pretty useful.